Now, I want to start off by saying that you don't have to do any prepping whatsoever. This is just for those of us that want to be ultra prepared. And you got to understand, guys, considering that the final shape rolls out on June the 4th, and literally 3 days later, we will have arguably the toughest raid ever in Destiny history. You bet your booty, I want to be as prepared as possible. And one of the best ways to be prepared is through your artifact mods. You never know when you might get an artifact mod that can literally change the game for you. For instance, in Season of the Haunted, multiple people in my dungeon squad, that being Les, didn't have Classy Restoration unlocked for the Duality dungeon. Needless to say, he got smacked around. Some of these artifact mods are huge, and I would expect that some of them that we get in the final shape are also going to be good. And I know we've had a number of comments stating that artifact mod unlocks will be lengthened, but understand in the TWAB a few weeks ago, this was talking about additional power levels, not the mods itself. With that being said, this guide is my own personal checklist going into the final shape. Everything from how exotic armor will be dropping in the final shape, which is huge for new exotics, but also the exotic class items. We're going to talk about one of my favorite websites that calculates how much experience you are carrying in your inventory and how many artifact mods this equates to. We're also going to be going over materials to cap out on and stack, and even more importantly, how to access previous season pass items. This is a huge way to carry over extra resources season to season just by simply using the right browser extension. Last but not least, I'm going to give you my own personal checklist of weapons that I'll be taking with me into the next expansion, as well as a small loot warning. So starting things off, we need to talk about the new exotic unlock system. Let's first just give this a rundown before discussing how to prep for it. For a long time, exotics haven't felt very important. If you're a new player, you have to grind lost sectors on a specific day and then pray to the RNG gods that you get what you want. Or you do things like Vex Strike Force, which was really good as it had a knockout system. This was a public event on the Amuna that wasn't always active, but there were websites that tracked it. On the flip side, if you were a veteran player, you probably just had an overload of exotic Ingrams that just piled up on you. Many of us just burned them just to get them out of our inventory. Now, currently, you can already focus your exotic Ingrams into previously acquired exotic armor by visiting Raoul in the tower. You can focus based on the DLC release, getting a random exotic, which requires 1 exotic Ingram, 30,000 glimmer, and 10 enhancement prisms. Or you could directly focus for a specific exotic, but it costs more resources. That's still being 1 exotic Ingram with 60,000 glimmer and 2 ascendant shards. Now, this is the change that Bungie is making in the final shape. They are finally giving Raoul the same major upgrades they've pretty much given every vendor in the game. First, he's going to be getting his own reputation track. This is going to be filled with various materials like enhancement cores and enhancement prisms, ascendant shards, and at the very end, you can get an exotic cipher. And you can level up Raoul's reward track by decoding Ingrams with them. And once you reset your rank, you would then be able to unlock a new tier of exotic focusing. Now, this new tier allows you to purchase any piece of exotic armor for any character for 1 exotic Ingram and 1 exotic cipher. This is in addition to the previous focusing options. Now, in our current focusing system, new exotics are on a 1 season delay, or I guess moving forward, a 1 episode delay until they're able to be focused. But understand how we take this new system is based on what Bungie said, literally in their own words, any piece of exotic armor, which means once you hit that tier 3 focusing, you'll be able to focus for any new exotic armor that comes along in the final shape. And I'm assuming this will mean the new exotic class items, or at least a chance to roll for them, as they are going to be completely random. You don't really know what spirit you're going to get. It may be Spirit of Ophidian or Spirit of Star Eater or something completely different that has no synergy. And I'm sure Bungie's going to come out and give us more details on these exotic class items, as I'm almost certain not every exotic in the game is going to be a part of this. The point is, guys, this reputation track is going to be vitally important when it comes to us acquiring exotics going forward. Now, going forward, lost sectors will still retain the same drop rates for exotics, but will instead drop exotic Ingrams, which can then be focused at Raoul. Now, the Neomuna's Vex Strike Force will still drop new exotic armor on that knockout system if there's anything you don't currently have. But going forward, you won't be able to obtain the new final shape exotic armors from it. Now, Bungie says the fastest way to progress Raoul's reputation is doing tier 2 decryption, which is focusing for specific exotics, and after that, tier 1 decryption by DLC. And then the third way of progressing, which is the least amount of experience, is just by opening your exotic Ingrams, as well as prime Ingrams. So it's obvious here, guys, if we're hoping to get these exotics very soon, we're gonna need to be stocked up on exotic Ingrams, as well as ascendant Shards, and Glimmer. Now, Glimmer is pretty straightforward. Bungie recently raised the cap to 500,000, and you can easily farm it pretty much from anywhere in the game, but especially from public events if you're needing to top off your Glimmer. You also have Ghost mods that can increase your Glimmer drops. Exotic Ingrams actually come from a lot of places, but still fairly rare. And this is why I'm saying from now until then, unless you're trying to get a specific exotic, don't burn them. I would highly recommend maxing out your decryption inventory, which is a 10 max on all characters. And if you go over, those additional Ingrams will go to your Postmaster. Just be careful, guys, playing the Postmaster game. You have a limited amount of slots, and if you overfill it, it will delete things. Now, there is a weekly challenge that can be done 3 times per week on all characters. That simply tasks you with completing 3 ritual activities. In the past, this used to be 3 strikes, 3 PvP matches, and 3 Gambit matches. But now you can play whatever you want. You could do 9 PvP matches, 8 strikes, 2 Gambit matches, etc. This is a way to guarantee 3 exotic Ingrams per week for all 3 characters. Your current and previous season passes are also a great way to find exotic Ingrams, especially if you've never picked them up. This season, for example, has 8 Ingrams on the track, some of which are even on the free portion for free-to-play players. Now, if you don't know how to access your old season pass, I'm going to teach you that in just a moment. Now, each vendor reset also awards exotic Ingrams, besides the very first one, as that gives an Ascendant Shard. So make sure you go in there, get those resets, and pick up those exotic Ingrams. This is both for the Tower Ritual vendors and the seasonal vendors. Exotic Ingrams also drop pretty often nowadays while just playing normally. And as mentioned, in the final shape, Legend and Master Law sectors will award you an exotic Ingram moving forward instead of armor. But if you start now, you have an entire month to get exotic Ingrams. So even if you're only doing the ritual challenges, that's still 3 a week. That's 12 right there. And hell, just doing it for the next 3 weeks, that's 9 exotic Ingrams you can have per character. There's a good chance while you're playing, a 10th will very much drop. Now, the next item necessary for exotic decoding is Ascendant Shards. Now, as mentioned, you can get 1 from your first vendor reset at places like Zavala, Shaxx, Drifter, Saint, the Gunsmith, and seasonal vendors. Your season pass reward track also has Ascendant Shards on it, and you can even purchase them from Raoul, including 3 a week for a reduced rate under the special order section. Now, activities like the Coil and Onslaught at later tiers are very rewarding, and you can see these in other materials drop, as well as Master and Grandmaster Nightfalls. Now, for my folks that want to take a more passive approach, or I guess passive, you can also fish. It's a great way to get some loot and resources. Not necessarily the most exciting nor efficient, but yeah, fishing is an option. Now, lastly, I'm going to mention exotic ciphers. Now, originally, you could only hold 1 at a time, but now you can hold a max of 5. Now, there's a chance you may already have 5, since they aren't really used for a whole lot besides the exotic kiosks, but since you'll need them for the new tier 3 focusing, you might as well stock up ahead of time. You may be able to find some in your current and past season passes, and there's also a weekly quest you can obtain from Xur called Xenology that awards you one. Now, we did an entire guide on Riven's Wishes. Now, Riven's Wishes are completely free. Not necessarily the most exciting stuff to do, but what you do get from it are these wish tokens. Now, these wish tokens can be redeemed for a number of things, including last wish weapons, but also exotic armor pieces that I know most of us probably already have. But the other thing you can redeem it for include Ascendant Shards, Ascendant Alloys, and exotic ciphers. Now, I currently have a number of wish tokens just sitting there, and I have from now until the final shape to redeem these things. Now, if you're looking to get started on getting these wish tokens, there are 6 quests that can be completed once per account. But these are the list of things here, and I'll actually link this Blueberry's website if you guys just want to take a read at it. But week 1 just has you completing 3 Rift Generator public events and completing 30 Dreaming City activities. Week 2 is opening 7 Ascendant chests. Week 3 is defeat 1,600 combatants in Legend or Master Law sectors, and then some tier 3 blind wells, kill and taking bosses, and then completing the prophecy dungeon at the end. We've got some video guides on this as well, guys, if you want to check that out. But there is some overlap here, especially for my folks that are already farming prophecy. You can just pick this up, do it, get your wish token in the process, and top off some of your resources. This is by no means necessary, and I will say when it comes to farming up exotic ciphers and Ascendant Alloys and even shards, there are better ways to do this. Especially considering Xur literally has a quest each week giving you a cipher. I think for the most part, most of us forgot that these wish tokens even exist. So if you do, you might as well burn them before the final shape. Now let's talk about the more standard ways of prepping for new content. That being bounty prepping. Now, I'm sure many of you are familiar with this concept. The idea here is to go from every vendor in the game and pick up and complete as many bounties as you can. You want to focus on the weekly bounties. Those are your XP++ bounties, and they give you a ton of experience. They are a must. The other bounties are your dailies that are XP+. You want to avoid anything that's just XP though, those being your repeatable bounties. Now, the reason why picking up these weeklies are important is because you can only pick them up each week. Some of them you can only complete within that week that you picked it up. And for a lot of these vendors, you can only do 2 weeklies from each vendor, with a few exceptions. Those are Hawthorne in the Tower, Barracks on Europa, and Petra in the Dreaming City. These vendors have some of their weekly bounties rotated each week, and this means you can get lots of more experience from these guys compared to your other vendors. For Hawthorne, she has 8 total with 4 available each week. For Barracks, it's this bounty that requires you to play through an Empire Hunt, for which there are 3, so you can get 3 of that same bounty. For Petra, the bounty is completing an Ascendant Challenge, or Ascendant Challenges. So that means you can actually get 6 of these weekly bounties from her. So to get the most out of your prep, you really want to start today. And the best way to just see if those bounties are available is through the Destiny 2 companion app. Guys, this app right here is right here on your mobile phone. You link your account, and you don't physically have to go to any of these vendors. You can literally pull the weekly bounties right from this app. I do it all the time, and it saves me a ton of time as I no longer have to commute to these places. Literally just pull this app, guys, look up all these bounties, pull out all the vendors, and get the ones that all say XP++. They'll last for a number of days in your inventory, and you can knock them out, but I would say for the ones that are tied to that week, especially like Ascendant Challenges, attack those immediately. Now, another way to really track all of your bounties is through this website called Destiny Recipes. This is a great resource that allows you to track not only how many bounties you have, but how much XP is currently stored, and it even includes things like the well-rested bonus, ghost mods, and a season XP boost. The main thing that it really shows you is how many artifact mods you will be able to unlock with the current amount of XP that you have stored. Now, Destiny Recipes has other functions like custom weapon checklists and even an analysis of your vault space. I cannot recommend this site enough though, as it gives you literally a numerical value saying, hey, this is how prepared you are for the upcoming expansion. This is definitely for my folks that are more hardcore, but it's a great way to just track all the bounties you have done and how much XP you have stored. Ideally, I want to get to the point where all of my artifact mods are unlocked, but if not that, I want at least 10. The other 2, I could probably squeeze out myself from playtime to have all of my artifact mods unlocked before the final shape raid. What I will say for my folks that are completing bounties though, see what overlaps. You'll be surprised how many things actually overlap. For instance, if it says in your weekly bounty from Eris to do Altar of Sorrows, but it also says to kill nightmares in nightmare hunts. Guys, this is perfect. What you want to do is you want to load up that topmost nightmare for Taniks, but instead of doing the nightmare hunt, jump on your Sparrow and head over there to Altar of Sorrows. And as you're killing multiple yellow bars throughout Altar of Sorrows, and you're completing waves of altars, this is a way to overlap these 2 things. It's things like this that will save you a lot of time, guys, where you get overlap. I had some bounties in Europa that required me to do some lost sectors, but at the same time, I had to do an Empire Hunt. So we loaded up into an Empire Hunt, and we did the lost sector literally right there in the Empire Hunt and got kills in the lost sector itself, rinsing and repeating, and then finished up the Empire Hunt afterwards, knocking out both of those bounties. I will say it is a time commitment, but these bounties carry a lot of experience, and they're worth it. The best way to save yourself time, though, is really check out that app, the Destiny 2 companion app. Pick up all those weekly bounties, whether it's from Shalhan, Petra, and a number of these other ones, even things like Dares of Eternity. Always go for this XP++ first, and then when we get into the later weeks, especially that final week, you could just pick up the daily bounties. What I will say, one of the best ways to just net you experience are those bounties from Hawthorne. If you got a clan, guys, do activities with those clanmates. Those bounties give you a ton of experience. And I know some of us don't have clans. You think I'm gonna get Pure Chill to play Gambit with me? Hell no, which is why I joined my community clan, which is Ham Carl. And we'll probably end up doing a second, maybe even a third community clan if you guys are interested. And literally all I do in my community clan is I'll just say, hey, doing Gambit, need a clanmate, somebody joins me, we knock out some Gambit games, and boom, clan bounty done. We've got a lot of experience from that bounty, and we'll hit whatever next activity we need to afterwards. So again, the 2 big resources, guys, and I know you're probably like, Cross, I could just go to these vendors myself. Telling you, the Destiny 2 companion app is huge at grabbing bounties and just sifting through which ones are the best, and then Destiny Recipes if you're really trying to go hardcore and get all of those checklists down. Now, as far as like farming up resources, I am stocking up, but not necessarily that crazy. Enhancement cores, enhancement prisms, ascendant shards, ascendant alloys, ciphers. I'll be pretty much accumulating as many of these as I can. I think loot for me is more of the focus as I'm playing things like Legend Onslaught over and over. I'll probably do some runs of Grandmaster Nightfalls in the final weeks, especially faster Nightfalls. And if you see like a double loot week for Grandmaster Nightfalls, that right there is a great way to top off your resources, as that's easily the best way to top off things like exotics, ascendant shards, and we'll be making call outs when double loot week hits. But I need to give a final reminder. Legendary shards will be totally deprecated when the final shape launches. Guys, spend them. You either use them or you lose them. And there is a number of places you could still use them. But if you're sitting there trying to save these things going into the final shape, don't. Spend them, bad babies. My personal recommendation is to spend them on rally banners. But you can also head over to the moon and you can purchase phantasmal fragments from the lectern. Big shout out to my Twitch chat for pointing this out. But this is the best way to store Glimmer in your back pocket at the expense of legendary shards. Now, I'm not quite sure how many you could stack up. Some people say 500. I've heard up to 999. The point is, though, you could stack up a ton. And what they equate to is 10 of these can be turned in for 10,000 Glimmer, straight from Raoul. And keep in mind, guys, Glimmer is going to be the main resource in the final shape. And considering legendary shards are going away, you might as well get them. Now we're going to talk about how to access previous season passes. This is hugely beneficial and it's mildly annoying, but guys, bear with me. Right now, if you go to Bungie's website, you can access the season pass from the most recent season. So for instance, it's Season of the Witch. You can claim these rewards. These are things like exotic ciphers, exotic engrams. It's very nice. And they'll drop straight into your inventory. And this is truly a great way to stock up on exotic engrams compared to sources we were talking about earlier. But understand, you can only see one season's rewards. What if you had already claimed all of those rewards? Now you're in a pinch. Well, this is where that extension comes in that you can get on Firefox. Now, I don't know if you can get it on Chrome, but I know it works for Firefox, and it's always worked for Firefox for us. And this is your Season Pass extension. We're gonna link this down below. Now, if you don't have Firefox browser, just download it, guys. I don't use Firefox. I use it literally just for this. I had some people in chat saying it works on Chrome. I have yet to find it work on Chrome. Firefox is the only thing I have seen it work on. And even if you're a console player, you need to still do this. But essentially, guys, once you've installed this extension, you then go to the same website, that same Bungie website where you see your previous season pass showing the most recent season. But if you click the extension, you could choose the season that you want. And right now, it goes as far back as Season of the Risen. Now, I'm not sure if this is going to change in the final shape. The main thing is for things like exotic ciphers and exotic engrams and just a number of other resources, even if it's things like Glimmer, you can go back and claim all of these things. And Bungie may come out and say, hey, we're getting rid of this. It's not going to work. So far, it's still working, and it worked last year. And it's one of those things that I wouldn't say go completely out of your way to do, but it's really not that hard to set up. You literally just log into Bungie, you download the extension, you go to that website for the season pass, and then you just click whatever season you want. Honestly, it sounds more than what it is. And you never know when you might be in a pinch where suddenly you're like, dude, if only I had one more exotic engram or one more cipher, I could unlock this new exotic. Now, this takes us to the last section that I want to cover, and that's both a loot warning and also just my recommendation list. First, we need to mention how our new weapons, or our newest weapons, will all be retroactively enhanceable in the final shape. Now, these enhanceable weapons include every weapon from the Prophecy Dungeon, our Guardian Games weapons, the Wild Style and the Slammer Sword from the Nightfalls, Tusk of the Boar and Multimach from Iron Man, and the Prophet and Summoner from Trials of Osiris. Now, none of these weapons will be leaving when the final shape drops, so it's not like you got to kill yourself to get these. But of course, if you come across a good roll for any of these weapons, you might as well keep them. You'll be able to enhance them. They're only going to get better. I think the weapons you really should be focusing on from now until the final shape really needs to be your shiny drops from Onslaught. Those shiny variants are going away. You will not be able to get that shiny Edge Transit with Explosive Light, Bait and Switch, Cascade, and Envious Assassin. Cross, are you really flexing this roll on us right now? Yes, I am. This right here, which I know Bungie's already said they're going to be looking into fixing, as they say this is too much power, but this right here has been carrying me every week in Pantheon. And what's so sad is that this roll will not be present in the final shape, at least the shiny variants. So the shiny variants of Onslaught, where you have the double perks, will also be enhanceable. Now, this also means that the base versions of these weapons will be enhanceable too. So those are still going to be good, and they're still going to be dropping, but it's the shiny variants that won't be dropping after the final shape. And yes, we have done a number of reviews on these, and we will be putting out a tier list on all of the Brave Arsenal weapons on which ones are truly S tier. Now, we have a number of weapons that are going to be rotating out that you see on the screen here. Keep in mind that some of these are also going to be present for legacy focusing. So you will be able to still get these. You just won't get the adept version, and they won't be dropping. Now, this takes us to the seasonal weapons that I would recommend getting. I've got a few that I like. I like Perpetualist from Season of Defiance. Eremites was also a really good one. This is a fusion rifle that we didn't do a review on, but it's very solid. Other weapons include things like Scatter Signal, which is a great fusion rifle in its strand, Abundance, which is a stasis trace rifle, Doom Petitioner, which is an aggressive linear fusion rifle, which I very much like. Each of these have their own draw, and I would recommend recommend all of these weapons. The other one that's kind of a special case is the semi-rocket launcher. This is the only strand rocket launcher that is currently obtainable. And if you want that, you can snag it. Again, what I will say though is that many of the weapons in the Brave arsenal are literally best in class, but those weapons that we just mentioned above are very, very good. I use scatter signal all the time, especially for that strand synergy. Now, the one other weapon that I would highly, highly recommend, guys, is Indebted Kindness, and probably its exotic counterpart, Bloodline. They're both really, really good. They're both sidearms that take special ammo, but they're very good. Indebted Kindness is probably my favorite, as you can get Volt Shot on it, and this little rocket sidearm puts out. Its ammo economy is really, really solid. I tell people all the time, if there was ever a weapon you should get from now until the final shape, it needs to be Indebted Kindness. Guys, it drops from the Warlord's Ruin dungeon. I've got an entire guide on it if you want to check it out, but you can literally just farm that first encounter over and over. The boss is a pushover, but in my opinion, the god roll for Indebted Kindness is lead from gold in that third column with Volt Shot. Don't get me wrong, I like permeability. I've definitely used permeability with things like Falcons and even Strand, but that Volt Shot roll is disgusting. And if you got lead from gold, your ammo economy is solid. Highly, highly advise, guys, getting Indebted Kindness. And if you happen to be doing the dungeon, you might as well get Bloodline. Bloodline's a really good one as well. It gives you free Devour, and it's one of the most used weapons in Onslaught. Now, before I go out and start recommending exotics, I really just need to see what happens with the sandbox. Bungie could literally come out and say, hey, we're giving 1K voices a 200% buff. I highly doubt that's going to happen, but who knows? The point is, as we get closer and we get sandbox nodes revealed to us, then we'll be able to make that assessment. Based on what we're currently in right now, let me just tell you two of my most used exotics in the game, or really three. One is Final Warning. This is that Strand sidearm. We've used it for a number of builds. It's phenomenal. The other one is Leviathan's Breath. Guys, Leviathan's Breath with the exotic catalyst is fantastic. Someone brought up on Twitter the other day that Leviathan's Breath doesn't work with reserve mods. That's not the case. It's because the catalyst maxes out your ammo, meaning you don't need reserve mods to get the most ammo from Levy Breath here. And the third exotic that I've actually used the most this past season has been Dragon's Breath. Not only is it a great source of damage, but it got a huge bump in its ammo economy. You're literally walking around with 9 rockets. It's disgusting. The last exotic I'm going to mention here is not necessarily a powerhouse, but one to keep in mind, and that's Necrocastle. It's getting a rework to its exotic catalyst. I'm not sure exactly how powerful it's going to be, but I do like Necro as it is now. But I'm curious to see how One for Thrall plays out in the final shape and whether or not this is really going to pick things up. So that's it, guys. That is our prep guide. I hope we haven't overwhelmed you, but again, down below are links to all the associated websites that we mentioned. Again, keep in mind, you don't have to do any of these things. You can go and play at your own pace. Some of these things are definitely for my more hardcore players. The last suggestion I would make is having your loadout set the day before the final shape launches. I have a number of dim links, but I keep my 10 favorite builds saved on each character. Dim and other things that access the API normally goes down the first day of an expansion. Hell, Destiny normally goes down. The point is here is having your loadout saved in-game. Your 10 favorites will allow you to pull these builds and plug them as you go, even if Destiny Item Manager is down. Granted, most of us are going to be getting prismatic, so I'm sure our builds are going to change drastically. If there's anything in the comments below, though, guys, that you want to include, feel free to include them. We have a Discord where a number of people are going to be farming for these things together, grinding resources together. We're live every Tuesday over on our Twitch, as well as Thursday for the TWAB. If you ever want to come by and see what we're doing, 9 times out of 10, especially for the month of May, it's going to be preparing. Literally preparation at all times, whether that's getting those rolls, those shining rolls, doing onslaught runs with you guys, doing Pantheon runs with you guys, or locking down some resources, especially for our weeks when we have double drops. That right there is going to be huge. So come join us. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching. And as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.